Most people who start planning a trip to Australia make the same assumption within the first 5 minutes of research. Most people who start planning a trip to Australia make the same assumption within the first 5 minutes of research. They look at a map, notice that Australia is in the southern hemisphere, do a quick mental inversion of the seasons, and conclude that the best time to go is during their own winter, which conveniently lines up with Australian summer, because that's when the weather will be warmest and the beaches will be at their best. This reasoning is not wrong exactly. It's just dangerously incomplete. And for a country the size of a continent, dangerously incomplete planning produces trips that miss the point in ways that take a while to fully understand. Australia is not one climate. It is not one season. It is not even, in any meaningful travel sense, one destination. It is a collection of radically different environments: tropical north, temperate south, arid interior, subtropical east coast, Mediterranean west, each operating on its own seasonal logic, each with a different answer to the question of when to go. A month that is perfect for one part of the country is actively hostile to another. And the tourists who arrive with a single seasonal assumption and a multi-region itinerary often spend at least part of their trip in the wrong place at the wrong time, wondering why nobody warned them. Consider this the warning. Start with the north, because the north is where the seasonal question is most consequential and most consistently misunderstood. The tropical north, Darwin, Kakadu, the Kimberley, Cairns, and the Reef, operates on two seasons that Australians call simply the wet and the dry. The wet runs roughly from November through April. The dry covers May through October. These are not gentle gradations. They are genuinely different worlds. The wet season in the north is hot, humid, and defined by monsoonal rainfall that arrives in the afternoon with a theatricality that takes most visitors by surprise. Temperatures sit in the low to mid-30s with humidity that makes the air feel physical. Roads flood. Some national parks close entirely. Kakadu, which is one of the great wilderness areas on Earth, has large sections that become inaccessible for months at a time. The waterfalls are at full, spectacular power. The landscape is extraordinarily green and alive, but reaching them requires planning, local knowledge, and sometimes a four-wheel drive and a willingness to accept that the road you plan to take may not exist in the form you imagined. The dry season is when the north makes sense for most visitors. From May through September, the humidity drops, the sky clears, the national parks reopen fully, and the temperature settles into something genuinely pleasant. Warm days, cool nights, the kind of weather that makes spending entire days outside feel effortless rather than something to be survived. This is when Kakadu is at its most accessible, when the Kimberley road trips that define the great Australian overland experience become possible. When Darwin transforms from a city bracing against the weather into one that spills comfortably into its outdoor spaces. June, July, and August are the sweet spot in the north. They are also, not coincidentally, when visitor numbers peak. Book accommodation in Kakadu and the Kimberley early. The good places fill faster than people expect. The reef deserves its own conversation because the timing question there involves factors beyond simple weather. The Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Queensland is one of the natural wonders of the world, and visiting it is straightforward enough that most tourists don't think carefully about when to go. They pick a time that works for their schedule, fly to Cairns, book a day trip, and assume the reef will be the reef. It will. But there are meaningful differences between seasons that change the quality of the experience considerably. The winter months, June through August, offer the clearest water, the best visibility for snorkeling and diving, and the most comfortable conditions on the boats that take you out. Humpback whales move through the Coral Sea during this period, which adds something to the experience that no amount of reef itself can replicate. Temperatures in Cairns in July sit around 25 degrees during the day and drop to around 17 at night, pleasant by any measure, and dramatically less humid than the summer months. Summer brings warmth and, in the waters around the reef, something that changes the calculation significantly for anyone planning to swim: marine stingers. Box jellyfish and irukandji jellyfish are present in inshore waters from October through May, and while day trip operators take precautions and provide stinger suits, the presence of some of the most venomous marine creatures on Earth is worth factoring into the timing decision. The outer reef is generally considered safer, but the risk is real, and it is not a reason to avoid the north in summer. It is a reason to understand what you're swimming in and plan accordingly. The shoulder months of April, May, September, and October offer a reasonable compromise. The stinger season is winding down or not yet fully established. The weather is good, and the school holiday crowds that peak in July have thinned. The East Coast is where most international visitors spend most of their time, and it stretches far enough that treating it as a single climate is its own mistake. Sydney sits at a latitude roughly equivalent to Los Angeles or Madrid. Its climate is accordingly temperate. Warm summers, mild winters, the kind of year-round livability that makes it one of the most consistently pleasant major cities in the world to visit. Summer in Sydney, from December through February, is beach weather. The harbour, the ocean pools, Bondi, Manly, the entire city orientates toward the water in summer in a way that makes the season feel almost designed for visitors. But Sydney in summer also means school holidays in January, which is the peak domestic travel period in Australia. Prices rise. Popular coastal areas fill. The general sense of uncrowded ease that makes Sydney so appealing at other times of year becomes harder to find. March through May, Australian autumn, is genuinely one of the best times to be in Sydney. The summer heat has softened. The water is still warm from the summer. The city is operating at its own pace rather than under the pressure of peak season. The light in Sydney in April is exceptional, clear, warm, low-angled in the late afternoon, and the city feels more like itself than it does when it's hosting its maximum number of visitors simultaneously. Melbourne runs cooler and is famously unpredictable in a way that Melburnians acknowledge with a mixture of resignation and pride. The city's saying, "4 seasons in one day," is not entirely an exaggeration. Summer in Melbourne can produce genuinely hot days, sometimes extremely hot, and then switch within hours to something much cooler. The shoulder seasons of spring and autumn are when Melbourne is most reliably pleasant, and spring in particular, September through November, brings the city to a kind of social and cultural peak that reflects in the quality of everything from its restaurant scene to its outdoor events. Then there is the interior, and the interior requires a completely different framework. The Red Centre, Uluru, Kakadu, the West MacDonnell Ranges, is one of the most spiritually significant and visually arresting landscapes on Earth. It is also located in one of the most extreme climates on Earth, and ignoring that fact produces either a miserable experience or a genuinely dangerous one. Summer in the interior means temperatures that regularly exceed 40 degrees Celsius. 45 is not unusual. The ground radiates heat upward while the sun pushes it down, and the combination produces conditions in which extended outdoor activity is not merely uncomfortable, but medically risky. The sacred climb of Uluru, which is now permanently closed out of respect for the Ananga traditional owners, but whose surrounding walking trails remain open, demands real engagement with the landscape at close range, and doing that in 40-degree heat is a fundamentally different proposition from doing it in 20. The window for the interior is May through August. Daytime temperatures in this period sit between 18 and 25 degrees. Nights get genuinely cold, sometimes close to zero, which surprises visitors who arrived expecting desert warmth around the clock. But the days are clear and golden, and the light on Uluru at sunrise and sunset does things that photographs have been failing to adequately capture for decades. The rock changes color, ochre to orange to deep red to something approaching purple as the light shifts, in a way that, however many times you've seen the image, lands differently in person. September and October push the temperatures upward again, but remain manageable if you plan activities for early morning and late afternoon, and treat the middle of the day as time for shade, water, and patience. Western Australia operates largely independently of the East Coast travel conversation, which is part of why it remains, for international visitors, the most undervisited part of a country that is already somewhat undervisited relative to its scale and quality. Perth is the most isolated major city on Earth by most measures, closer to Singapore than to Sydney, and this isolation has produced a city with a distinct character, a food and wine culture that has developed largely on its own terms, and access to some of the most spectacular and empty coastal scenery in the world. The southwest of Western Australia, Margaret River, the Kerry Forests, the white sand bays of the south coast, is best visited from October through April, when the Mediterranean climate delivers warm, dry days that are ideal for the wine region's cellar doors and the long, empty beaches of the south. The wildflower season, which runs from August through October across the southwest, is one of Australia's most underrated natural spectacles. Thousands of square kilometers of native wildflowers in colors and varieties found nowhere else on Earth, and visited by almost nobody outside the country. The Ningaloo Reef in the northwest, a World Heritage Site that rivals the Great Barrier Reef in ecological significance and surpasses it in accessibility, since you can snorkel directly from the shore, is best visited between March and July. This window coincides with the whale-shark season, during which the largest fish on Earth aggregates in numbers that make swimming alongside them a realistic rather than exceptional experience. There is one seasonal consideration that applies to Australia broadly, and that international visitors almost never factor in until it's too late. Australian school holidays move large numbers of domestic travelers simultaneously, and in a country where the population is concentrated in a handful of coastal cities, those movements have a meaningful impact on prices and availability at popular destinations. The major school holiday periods, 2 weeks in April, 2 weeks in July, 2 weeks in September or October, and 6 weeks from mid-December through late January, are when domestic tourism peaks, accommodation prices in coastal areas spike, and the general sense of space that makes Australia feel so different from more densely populated destinations becomes harder to access. The best times to visit from a crowd and cost perspective are the periods between these school holidays, late January through March, late April through June, and August through early September. These windows don't always align perfectly with ideal weather for every region, but they align well enough that with some thought about which part of the country you're prioritizing, it's possible to build a trip that hits the right season for your chosen region while avoiding the peak of domestic travel pressure. So, what is the best time to visit Australia? The honest answer is that it depends entirely on which Australia you are visiting. For the tropical north and Kakadu, the answer is May through August without much qualification. For the Great Barrier Reef, June through August offers the best conditions, with the shoulder months on either side as reasonable alternatives. For Sydney and the southeast, March through May and September through November both deliver excellent weather with fewer crowds than the peak summer and school holiday periods. For Melbourne, spring, September through November is the season the city saves its best for. For Uluru and the Red Centre, May through August is the window, with the shoulder months workable if you respect the midday heat. For Western Australia's southwest, October through April for the coast and wine country, August through October for the wildflowers. The tourists who come back from Australia most satisfied are rarely the ones who try to see all of it at once. The country is too large and too varied for any single trip to do it justice, and understanding that is itself a form of travel intelligence. Choose a region. Understand its season. Give it enough time to reveal itself on its own terms. Australia does not withhold itself from visitors. It simply asks that you arrive knowing which version of it you came to find. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, smash that like button and subscribe to When to Travel. We're all about helping you make smarter travel decisions. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And hey, if you think your friends need this, share it. Comment below with your next destination or your biggest travel question. I'm reading all of them. Let's go.